Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our listeners and also welcome any new listeners and everyone listening online at khbradio.com. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past episodes. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Well, today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Andrea Canepari. His name is probably very, very familiar to many of our listeners from Philadelphia, and not only, as he served as the Consul General of Italy in Philadelphia from 2013 to 2017, but he's currently serving as the Directorate General for Country Promotion of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Rome. He was also the ambassador of Italy in the Dominican Republic from 2017 and 2021. He's a graduate from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, Bocconi University in Milan and the University of Parma, and he was recently awarded the Honorary Doctorate of Human Letters by the American University of Rome for his distinguished diplomatic career and dedication to promoting the Italian culture across the Atlantic. And today we will have the pleasure to hear firsthand, not only about his diplomatic achievements while in office and maybe some challenges, but we will also talk about the beautiful publication, The Italian Legacy in Philadelphia, History, Culture, People and Idea, published by Temple University. Ma prima, pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home, because a trip to La Prima is like a trip to Italy, closer to home. Well, now we are ready to finally bring our very special guest, Dr. Andrea Canepari. Welcome to the program. Buonasera, buon pomeriggio.
Buon pomeriggio. Thank you so much for me here this morning.
We are honored because I'm sure that you managed to squeeze in this conversation with us between the many appointments that you probably have on your agenda for today. And so we will talk. I would like to talk a little bit about your diplomatic career to give our listeners and viewers an idea about what happens behind the curtain, so to speak, some of the programs. And but I see that we have you starting your career about maybe one of the first experiences was the one in Ankara in Italy. Turkçe konuşabilir misiniz? That's as far as my Turkish.
Wow, that's a surprise. Good enough.
So we were in Ankara pretty much around the same time. That's a little connection. Just I actually met you for a while. So, and my husband is from Ankara. So that was the little connection that I said. I was very. And then after that, you had your first experiences in the US, starting from Washington, the embassy in Washington, D.C., and that's actually where we met. But it's easier for us to remember you than you remember some of us, because there are millions of people that you encounter in your career. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience in D.C.?
In D.C., well. First of all, yes, I remember also the great experience in Ankara, Turkey, and Meto, the university that you mentioned, was a great one. An American university in the central of Anatolia. And there also, I felt how important was the connection with university, because with university, you can create building bridges. So the same was also in DC. In DC, I had the privilege to serve Italy in a very incredible time, there was a rising of a new young senator from Illinois, and I had the privilege to follow his campaign around the US, of course, was Barack Obama. And also, I had the great pleasure to work with a lot of think tanks, universities, to see what was going on during that incredible time in the US. I worked with great ambassador Giovanni Castellaneta, then Giulio Terzi, my direct boss, Luca Ferrari, now ambassador in China, was creating a very dynamic Office of Public Affairs at the embassy. So it was a great experience because great times and the opportunity to see really the new agenda in Congress, what potential of the relationship we could create between Italy and the US. So great time.
And then, you know, we were lucky enough to have you also in Philadelphia from 2013 to 2017, and your many contributions enhancing and your achievements in enhancing international relations for the city of Philadelphia also is something that's been clearly mentioned in the dedication of your honorary degree in the address in the speech. And so what are the consulate, just let's tell our listeners how big is the territory that is under the consulate in Philadelphia, because people don't realize it's probably one of the biggest territories, right?
It's a big chunk of the US. It's the same size of France, and it goes from southern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, and West Virginia. So I think it was great for me to meet all the governors, to see, with the exception, of course, of Washington, D.C., and two counties on the northern side and southern side of the border of District of Columbia. So the privilege to meet all of you, to meet you actually, to visit many organizations of the Italian community, to meet a lot of friends of Italy in this region. And it's a very diverse region of the US, and great friendship between Italy and the US. It was very easy to witness that every day, and it was very helpful for my job.
So maybe we should, you know, I was going to ask a few other questions about some of the other assignments, but I think, you know, I wanted to spend most of our conversation talking about the publication that came out as a result of your assignment in Philadelphia and being exposed to the many sfumature of Italianness that exist over there. And let's try to, and obviously the book I'm referring to is The Italian Legacy in Philadelphia, which is, again, beautiful with the content and the stories that are portrayed. But let's actually go one step back and let's talk about when do we start seeing Italians coming to Philadelphia, and what, I don't want to say what type of Italians, but what regions maybe were represented the most with the first, you know.
That's a great question, because everybody, when we talk about Italian immigration or Italian link between in Philadelphia's region, everybody will think about the mass migration, about last century. But actually, since the beginning, there was a great bridge between the two continents. For instance, the first consul general of an Italian state in the 1795, if I'm not mistaken, was Giuseppe Ravara from Genoa. And he was a merchant, but not only a merchant, he was working in the top American firm at the time, really the biggest corporation in the US at the time, big chunk of the American foreign trade. And of course, that company was based in Philadelphia. Then we had all the friends of Jefferson and the other founding fathers. We had merchants from Milano, basically a lot of people from northern Italy came to Philadelphia at the time, and they brought culture, high culture. They created business. They were linked in the American society, bringing an Italian perspective to the foundation of the US. Some others just came with books. For instance, in our book, we have a professor of the University of Pennsylvania Law School, Bill Ewald, wrote about how Beccaria and others, philosophers from Italy, influenced the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. So there were people, but also books that traveled across the ocean and inspired the foundation of the US.
So a lot of ideas, a lot of thinkers, a lot of high culture. And the book does a wonderful job. And as I said, I'm going to pick it up because this book doesn't belong on just an stand. This belongs to the hands of everyone, Italian or not, because it is a very thorough publication that covers the history, the culture, the people, and you said some of the ideas. And so the reader can approach this publication in many different ways, in a order, from page 1 to the last one, or maybe dedicate focus on learning about different segments and then put the whole picture together, a little bit like a puzzle. And this is indeed the fruit of labor of many other contributors, and that have all brought into the picture some of their core studies and expertise. And actually, I was able to follow a panel where most of you were together, and it was just wonderful. And at what point, what really motivated you to put it together? Because this is a massive endeavor, and I'm sure your agenda was quite full as it was, right? And it's still quite full.
It's really a labor of love for the Italians in the Philadelphia region, but also in Pennsylvania, because, for instance, in the book is portrayed those events that we had in Pittsburgh with Duquesne and University of Pittsburgh. So it's a big region that is covered in that book. And as you said, yes, a lot of people were involved. We had my co-editor is Judith Good, Professor Emerita of Temple University, and first chairperson of the American Society of Anthropology of North America. And she's not Italian, as are not Italian a lot of the contributors. We have professors from Ivy League University, UPenn, Princeton, other university, director of museums. I think that the less academically qualified, it's myself and a journalist who just won the Pulitzer Prize. So, I mean, very incredibly talented group of people. We started in 2016 and it was published in December 2021. So a lot of hours, days spent on that book because I felt that was missing a symphony of what the Italians did in that part of the US. And I heard so many stories from you, from others, friends, and everybody told me, highlighted something. But we had a lot of details, but we missed the big picture, the symphony. So I wanted these stories to be remembered. And also it was wonderful working with many organizations, professors, Italian, and not only, the Friends of Italy, big supporter of Italy in that part of the US. And we created, first of all, a 3 days initiative, Ciao Philadelphia, that then immediately became 1 month, and then became a kind of permanent frame for events. We had hundreds of events with even the American Jewish Committee, Anti-Defamation League, with organizations that do not have anything specifically related ethnically with Italy, but we share common values of freedom, respect of dignity of human being. And so with all this organization, everybody wanted to jump in. Our first sponsor was American Airlines. And they came to me and they said, we like what you're doing because through the Italian lenses, you show that Italy and Philadelphia is perfect together. And new opportunities can arise and people can see Philadelphia as an international city. And when I say Philadelphia, I mean more than just Philadelphia, because as I said, Pittsburgh, Maryland, West Virginia, even Virginia was included in this action. So all this story, all this friendship needed to be preserved. And the book, it's also, it's about the legacy of what they did during that special period of time for me, when I had the honor of being Consul General of Italy in Philadelphia. So I wanted something to stay and give the opportunity not only to enjoy, but also to see which kind of possibility they will have in the future.
So it's probably hard to pick, a specific story or topic in almost 400 pages. But the way that also the book is organized, we have 4 major chapters. The first one being Independence and Early Republic, where Cesare Beccaria, for instance, is mentioned, Garibaldi's American brother, and the Piedmontese Consul. So we started to see the RTC of the capital of Philadelphia. Maybe we'll talk about some of that. The second chapter focuses on expanding industrial metropolis, from the experience of the Grand Tour from home to the Union League of Philadelphia. Then we move on to chapter 3, Made in America, with the mention of South Philadelphia, which is what people might associate with the Italian neighborhood, but that's much later than the first, type of Italian contact in Philadelphia that you had talked about. And then the jazz, that was something that I was not familiar, jazz in the neighborhood and the world. And then moving on to the last chapter, the contemporary Philadelphia. And so from the universities, Temple University, so forth, NIAF and Italian gastronomy, that was also very interesting, because it also gives us an idea of, for instance, also how Italian food became Italian American food, with sometimes people say, changes, but the changes might have represented also a change in status of those Italian Americans, the Italians that came in America, and upgraded some of the ingredients, so to speak, because maybe there was more wealth. So instead of the eggplant in a eggplant parmigiana, they put chicken, which you wouldn't find in Italy, but you find commonly here. So it gives us different lenses. I listened to some other presentations that Professor Goody has. Is there any specific aspect, for instance, whether it's the capital or the jazz or the idea of centro città, that is very different, that you would like to elaborate a little more?
Yeah, just the curiosity of jazz. I mean, Eddie Lang, the famous American jazz music player, was called and born Salvatore Massaro, so was an Italian American. And there were people, there was a professor of University of Pennsylvania that told me, oh, you have to tell that story. So we added jazz. I like also what you remember. I was first of all, I love Philadelphia. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent so many years working on that book. But in Philadelphia, I feel home because it's a city without the usual American downtown. They have a center city, which is a literal translation of centro città. Centro città, center city, it's a place where you live, you work, you shop, everything together. That's, gives you the idea how deep was the European and Italian influence since the beginning, since the founding fathers, in the first capital of the US, Italians were able to enter in any part of the fabric of the new capital at that time, and then to influence and make it even more interesting and beautiful. And all the authors, I cannot pick somebody because
it would be unfair. It's like saying which child do you love the most, right?
Exactly. And they all work so much for that book. At the beginning, from Temple University Press, because I picked an American press because I wanted to give the signal that these stories were so serious that they deserve an American university press to tell. I mean, there is not any invention. I mean, everything is true, is documented, extremely serious. And at the beginning, they told me, well, you are envisioning so many authors. Well, yes, maybe you don't have such an experience in creating these books. Usually, if you ask, I don't know, 20 authors, usually you end up with maybe 6, 7. Actually, we ended up with much more than what we started, because there was passion. People were really passionate about this project. So they suggested new ideas, new chapters, new pictures. And especially for pictures, it's also some of the work. It's something I did basically alone. I mean, and as you may imagine, copyrights, it's a nightmare because we are dealing with international copyrights, very difficult. But I wanted also the pictures because some academic books, you have it, they are very interesting. You put on your nightstand and they stay there, unless you are not an expert. I wanted a beautiful book because I want people to open it, enjoy, and maybe have some curiosity because of special pictures, nice picture of a building that they would have never heard about before. For instance, the copy of the Bridge of Sighs from Venice in Central City, Philadelphia. And every time people that they see that picture, they say, well, I didn't know we have this bridge. Yeah. And so you start a conversation.
Yes.
So
And
that's why it's very important.
And also something about I'm going to pick up the book again. Okay, so the book indeed is serious, but it kind of the fact. So look at the beautiful picture here. And then you have this drawing in the back, which is an amazing drawing. I think it really reflects the personality of the Italians. You know, we like to put our, pretty facade, not facade, but we like to take care of ourselves. But we're also big jokers and everything. We like sports, we like fast cars. And if I might ask you if you can share something about the Andrea Canepari without the doctor in front of it, because I'm sure you and your family in this diplomatic career, you have to embrace the idea of moving every so often.
Yeah,
not always in places that have either common values or common landscape. Because we have only a couple of minutes before you have to dash into your next meeting. Can you share something about maybe some of your strategies or your family strategies to adjust and embrace the new destination that you are assigned to?
Yes, actually, I'm going in a few minutes in the preparation of the big presentation of the Week of Italian Cuisine in the World. I think everybody, abroad knows and enjoys this initiative, and we will have a big event next Friday, this incoming Friday, with Minister Tajani and other ministers. So that's why I have unfortunately to leave you, but please invite me another time and we can have another talk about some other part of these experiences. I'd love to. You mentioned a very important point, at least for me personally, for my wife, Roberta. Well, my wife is as international as I am. She's Italian, but we met in Washington, D.C. It's a funny story, but another time I will tell you how we met. So she's very used to, she used to work for the Inter-American Development Bank. So she's used with international public life. And for our kids, they were born in Italy, in Rome, in the middle of the Tiber River. There is a 2,000-year-old hospital, Fate Bene Fratelli. So but when they were 2, they were transplanted to Philadelphia. So they started with a very waspish kindergarten, and then we built their grade school, but then something was missing, so we put them in a very South Philadelphia institution, and it's a school, San Monica School, in the heart of South Philadelphia. There is also a picture of that school and that church in the book. And they started from scratch, I mean, speaking English. It's not easy. We teach them that they have some roots, so it's important for them to be Italian, and to know that they have this privilege to see the world. But we have also the obligation to move around, and as everybody, I mean, living abroad, we have families maybe in some other continents, and it's not easy. So right now that they are enjoying, they are almost 12 next week, actually. I have twins, Bianca and Matteo, and they will celebrate for the first time since a few years their birthday with their grandparents.
In Nonni.
With in Nonni. So they are so thrilled about that. And when they want to see the Nonni, they just have to take a train. Well, it's 5 hours, 6 hours, but it's better than to take 1 or 2 transatlantic flights. Absolutely. And I think you can relate. So we are trying to teach them that they have a house also in Italy, to look at that as a place of memory, but also that they have to enjoy every time where they are and make friends and be part of the community where they have the fortune to be. So right now it's working.
And so, as I said, I'm very aware of the time, but this will be a great topic of a second conversation, because not only about bilingualism, but how they develop certain skills that are definitely going to help them in the future. This adaptability and thinking outside the box, relating to other cultures from a very young age. Dr. Canepari, this has been a very enjoyable conversation. We will definitely invite you back to join us, maybe when I'm back in Roma, my hometown, which is probably going to be Christmas time or at some point in the summer. Would love to connect with you. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.